ठीक आहे रे, मग नंतर घे ना.
Good evening, everyone. So let's begin with today's session, Be Assertive. So before going ahead with the sessions, I would like to give a short introduction about today's speaker and of course about the OHR. So 8 years back in 2013, two HR professionals, Mr. Prashant Ithape and Mr. Jitendra Pense, they initiated this knowledge sharing journey of OHR. So mission of this OHR is to contribute actively through the HR functions towards developing globally competitive industry. So till date, 90 plus knowledge sharing sessions have been conducted by OHR, and with the blessings of all of you, OHR is now a trust known as OHR Foundation, and we have been positively influencing towards HR professionals through various social media mediums like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. So we are also open for OHR knowledge sharing members by paying a nominal annual fees, and those who are annual members can avail various benefits such as knowledge sharing, professional networking, and career planning and advice regarding the same. So you can connect with Mr. Prashant Ithape for more details. I'll just share his number in a chat box. So let's move to the today's session, being assertive. So we have Mr. Sunil Shinde with us today, who is sharing his valuable thoughts on being assertive. Mr. Sunil has 23 years of experience in learning and development, talent development, behavioral and team building trainings, and even personality assessment, coaching, and facilitation. He has worked with many giants like John Deere, Amdocs, and Jet Synthesis at both national and global level. So now he's working independent consultant at Bodhi BIBE. So this was about our today's speaker. So I'll just hand over the session to Mr. Sunil Shinde. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Jyotsna, for the introduction. So first of all, good evening to all those who are present here. And I'm sure we all have gathered here for the topic. The topic is being assertive. And some of the key points that have been said under being assertive is, personalities in action. We are what we think. How does, or what's the connection between our thoughts and behavior, and how this connection impacts both self as well as our relationships. And it is our belief system that decides what is our view of this whole world, and this keeps on impacting the way we behave in the professional environment, of course also in personal environment. And what is the way we can refine this belief system so that we have a reasonable or rational professional career that way. So before we begin, just wanted to take a sense of what should be the language of communication from my side. So English, Hindi, and Marathi is okay from my side. But any particular preference for a language, you can either unmute your phone and talk about it, or you can put it in the chat box, anything what you would prefer. Any particular preference?
Sir, English is good.
English is okay? Fine. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Rajendran. Thanks, Maharaj. Okay. So when what I'm going to speak today is it will be a mix of some of the experiences in my career. When I used to work, in different kinds of companies. There are IT organizations, there are manufacturing organizations where I worked. Of course, the capacity has been more in terms of HR related, which is talent development, talent management, or managing the talent pipeline, career development, yeah, training and coaching, of course, comes along with that. One thing is for sure, what we are talking today is about behavior. Okay, and there are some. The only thing what I found out is like this, that sometimes just because we don't have an awareness of certain things, certain mistakes keep on happening from all of us. Okay, as we proceed in our career, even an awareness of certain things kind of helps us to correct our path. And we are going to talk about what are those things. Of course, I'll try to cover as much as possible in the next 50 to 60 minutes time that I have, and then we will take question and answers at the end of it. Okay, surely I think we will have time for that. So the topic is actually being assertive. But before we start, what do you mean by being assertive? Let us build some baselines for those kind of things. Okay, and then we'll come to what is being assertive. Okay, um, so let's talk about there was actually a famous psychologist called Albert Ellis, and in one of his books he had written one very beautiful statement, and that is where I would like to keep the base of today's session. Okay, and the statement was like this, that there are three must. Okay, must means ye to hona hi chahiye. Okay, so there are three must which always holds us back whenever we are doing anything. Okay, there are three must, or rather I talk it as like there are three expectations which we always have from ourselves, and most of the times these are the reasons which are responsible for holding us back. What are those three must? Okay, they are like this. Number one, I must do well. Okay, I must do well. Whatever I am doing, I must do well. Kaam barabar hona chahiye. I must succeed. I must pass. Everything, no trouble. I must do well. The second one is others should treat me well. Wherever I go, whoever I interact with, whether in the professional capacity, whether in the personal capacity, I must be treated well. And the third one, okay, the third one is like, life in general should be easy. Okay, life in general should be easy. So there are three must. One is I must do well. Second is others should treat me well. And third is, life should be easy. Whenever anything happens because of which we feel uncomfortable, upset, angry, frustrated, whatever it is because one of these three must has been shaken. Okay, so that's the basis. Always remember this. Okay, these three must are the expectations which nobody has put on us, but we have put on us. Okay, so for example, if I am working on a project in a company, that project should complete on time and everything. Okay, so whenever any trouble comes, that I must do well, that is shaken, and therefore we get upset, frustrated, unhappy, or whatever it is. Okay, so I just wanted to keep that in mind. Okay. Since we are going to talk about behavior at the end of it, I have seen that there are many people who actually came across with a question that can we change the behavior? Okay, of course, until 70s, 60s or 70s, there was a feeling that behavior once set cannot be changed, okay, because science was not developed to an extent. But yes, definitely today the field of neuroscience has developed to an extent which proves that whatever is our thought process is nothing but the way the connections are made in the brain. And if you want to break old connections and build new connections, that is possible. That means behavior can be changed. Number one, can behavior be changed? Answer is yes. Is it easy? Answer is no. It is tough. The reason why it is tough is because in this case, we are not challenging anyone else. We are challenging ourselves, and that is why it is tough. Okay. Um, Nitin Sonar, can you mute the phone, mute your speaker? Yeah, okay. Thanks. Yeah, sure. So, so that was about, behavior can be changed. Now, the next concept which I want to talk about is that, mostly in organizations, whenever we are dealing with employees, we normally used to say that, there are actually three things totally which are necessary for, getting or being successful. Okay. And the usage of these three things in the right combinations helps us to lead a good professional career. What are those three things? Okay. First is, of course, knowledge. Okay. So what you learn in schools, colleges, what you do, different professional courses and all those things, you attend different training sessions, whatever is this is the knowledge what you get. Okay. Now that's knowledge, because knowledge is necessary to perform, absolutely necessary to perform. But having knowledge is one thing, but to apply that knowledge successfully, you need skills. Okay. Now, when I say skills, it's nothing new word to you. When you talk about communications, presentations, we always add that word skills, communication skills, presentation skills, negotiation skills, decision-making skills. Okay, so these are all the skills that are required so that we use that knowledge. Using the skills, we are able to perform. Okay, so knowledge and skills, these are two parts, very, very important. But if we have to really
please, can you mute yourself?
Yeah, okay. So knowledge is one thing, skill is the second thing. Now there is this third thing which is actually very important, which is actually most important, I would say, in organizations, and especially when we are deciding the organizational culture, dealing with employees. This is one which is the root of, one which comes even before knowledge and skills. Okay. What is that? Okay. So along with knowledge and skills, yeah, Maharaj, I think you guessed it absolutely right. The third thing which is important is attitude. Absolutely. Okay. So you have knowledge. To apply knowledge effectively, you use skills. Okay. But both of these knowledge and skills becomes a very good combination only when we have a right attitude. Right now the question is like this, that much has been talked about attitude, and we all have our own definitions of attitude. Okay, like what attitude exactly means. Okay, and that word also keeps on coming in our conversations time and again. It's there in our vocabulary. Now if I have to invite some few views about what is meant by attitude, can some of you just put it in the chat box what attitude means? Or if somebody wants to just speak out on the on your microphone, they can just unmute, speak it, and mute again. What is attitude according to you? Two or three definitions. What would that be?
Character plus value.
Yes, Balasab, character plus value. Yes, Sudhir Kulkarni says way of looking at things. Jayesha says our approach towards the situations. The way you think, way you behave. Abhijit says that, and Pratibha says the way of expression, how we carry our approach.
I feel someone's
correct.
opinion or feelings about something, somebody may have a negative feeling or somebody may have a positive feeling. If you show a positive attitude, then things will become positive. If you show a negative feelings, then it will become a negative attitude.
Got it. Thanks, Rajendran. So the way we actually, kind of express our feelings, the way of expression, the way we react to a situation. Absolutely. So the, whatever you have actually said, it is all, it's right. It's going towards that definition of attitude. Okay. But just like, what, when we, let's say when we go for fishing and somebody says, where are you going? We say normally that, I'm going to catch a fish. But frankly, when you're going to catch a fish, catching a fish is not your primary responsibility or primary job. Your primary job is that your primary job is to attract the fish. So when 4 or 5 fish gets attracted, one of them kind of gets stuck, to the hook. And that is where you say, I caught a fish. So before catching a fish, your main job is how you attract the fish. Catching a fish is a result of it. Okay. Similarly, attitude. So whatever you have said, okay, most of these things are actually pointing towards attitude, but they are actually the result. Okay, so the the right definition of attitude is the way I look at myself, the way I look at others, and the way I look at any situation, because that will decide how you think, how you behave, how you express yourself, what will be your feelings, how will you react to a situation. I'll repeat that. Attitude is the way you look at yourself and the way you look at situation. Okay. Yeah, we sometimes call it as a character because whatever we behave, etc., that's how we exhibit our character. Okay, so that's the output of it, right? But it's the output of it, correct? But you have to understand what makes us react in a certain way, what gives rise to our feelings, what decides our approach. Okay, it is the way you interpret the situation, it is the way you interpret yourself, it is the way you interpret others. Let's take an example. Okay, there is a project team. There is a team of, let's say, 5 people working with a project manager, right? Now what happens is like this, that if suppose if the project manager comes and says that let's say if the team has what do you say, let's say the whole project manager and the team, they have probably planned some function or some celebrations over the weekend. Okay, some celebration over the weekend, and it's Friday today and they know that Saturday, Sunday there is going to be celebration and all those things, so they are very much excited about it, that how what all they have to do. But let's say on Friday evening, if this whole team is told that whatever project you are working on, you need to complete it by Tuesday, so we are canceling your holiday, you need to come work on it, complete it and submit it by Tuesday. Now suddenly this happens. Now what happens? There are 5 people in that team. Okay, will the 5 people exactly respond the same way? One of them might be one of them might be very angry and saying that, you know, इनको अभी करना था क्या, इसी यही सैटरडे संडे मिला था क्या, you know, he will speak all those things. यही सैटरडे संडे मिला था तुमको ये सब करने को. The second one might feel like this, ठीक है चलो आएंगे, पता नहीं ओवर टाइम मिलेगा, that way. The third one might be very angry inside. Okay, so the reason why I'm giving this example is like this, that now the situation is like this, that there was going to be a celebration which people were looking forward. Now somebody has come and canceled that whole plan. Okay, how will 5 people react? So people do not react in the same way for the same situation. They react differently. They react differently. Okay, now why do you think they react differently? They react differently because they interpreted that whole situation differently. Somebody says, ठीक है यार अभी नहीं, चलो एक काम करते हैं, सेलिब्रेशन पोस्टपोन करते हैं नेक्स्ट सैटरडे संडे. One might say, इनको यही सैटरडे संडे मिला था क्या, you know, this इनको अक्कल नहीं, these people don't have brains, you know, they are, you know, they actually wanted to, you know, पानी फेर दिया पूरा, जो whatever it is. And that is where I say attitude is nothing but the way a person interprets the situation, and that is the reason why different people read the situation differently and therefore they react differently. And what we see is their behavior. So if somebody has that emotional outburst, वो दिख के आता है. If somebody just keeps quiet, वो दिख के आता है. So what we see is the behavior. But the reason why their behavior is different is because they have interpreted the situation differently. So you have to be, you have to understand this. And that is the reason why we say that attitude is important. Okay, so just remember that. So knowledge, skills, and attitude. Okay, now what happens is like this, that this actually brings us, you know, normally in organizations we used to do personality assessment because that used to be the key for many other things. Okay, because once you understand a general personality vis-a-vis the person's job description, okay, that actually helps us, you know, sometimes many times it helps us to put the right person at the right place. Okay, now when it comes to personality, of course there are many tools which are used to infer the personality of a person. Okay, but the reason why I'm talking about personality is because today's topic is being assertive, and assertive is a type of personality. Okay, because one of the classification of personality is that, you know, you can, you know, there are submissive people, there are aggressive people, and there are assertive people. Okay, submissive is one extreme, aggressive is another extreme, and assertive is the middle one. Okay, now submissive, no need to tell you because the name itself suggests what kind of personality that person be. So submissive people are basically the people who have a low self-esteem, who think themselves low about themselves, who question their own capability, who think that they might not be good at something or etc. And that is the reason why their personality overall appears to be submissive. They can be controlled by other people very, very easily. Okay, they don't have that much decision-making capacity. So that's submissive. The extreme of this is aggressive. So aggressive is the other end of the story, where this person is like who thinks very high of himself, overconfident, more than higher self-esteem, ridicules other person, doesn't treats other equal, is not a dependable person, aggressive behavior. So that's the aggressive thing. So that brings us to what is the middle one, and that is assertive personality. Okay, now the question is, we will tie up this assertive personality to what we were discussing before. We discussed knowledge, skills, and attitude. Okay, question is, where does this attitude comes from? Because if we say that let's say I understand my attitude is not right, if I have to change, then I need to know where does this attitude comes from. Okay, now attitude actually comes from, okay, something called as your belief system. Attitude comes from belief system. Okay, and belief system actually comes from, of course, multiple factors, but I'll name few of them. Okay, where does the belief system comes from? Now the belief system comes from, number one, part of it is hereditary from your parents. Okay, that's genetically from nature. Second, the way you have been brought up. Okay, the way you have been nurtured. So first is nature, which is genetic from parents. Second is the way you have been brought up, the way you have been nurtured. That's the second one. Okay, so if you have been nurtured throughout by saying that, you know what, तुम तो किसी काम के नहीं हो, you're a failure, you cannot do anything, you're good for nothing, etc. So you imagine what will be his belief system when this child turns into a young adult. And that's why I said nurture, the way you have been brought up. And the third one is culture. So culture means where, the area where you have been staying, what kind of people you have come across, what have you seen, what have you heard, what are the inputs you have got from various peoples in the house, outside the house, and all those things, your friends. Now, nature, that is parents, nurture, the way you have been brought out, culture is like, the external factors which have been gone into shaping what you are, the way you are. These three things actually form a belief system, because frankly speaking, until the age of 15 or 17, the frontal part of the brain, that is the thinking brain, is fully developed at that age. That means until that age, whatever people say is kind of taken at a face value. Maybe it's true, rather than questioning the logic of it. Okay. So a person who, so somebody who has been brought up, a single child, got everything on the plate and all those things, his attitude, of course, will be different. Somebody who has come from a very adverse situation, facing adversities, overcoming challenges, his attitude will be different. And that's where I said, your belief systems are based upon these three: nature, nurture, and culture. They form your belief system, and that's how the belief system will actually decide how you think, how you interpret the situation. And from there, now let me tell you, there is a triangle which I would like all of you to remember. Okay, so, and some of you might know it. The belief system decides what will be your thought process. That means what you think. That means what thoughts go into your mind. There's a terminology used called as self-talk. दिमाग के अंदर जो भी बातें चलती है, that is called as you are talking with yourself. That's all. So that's why it is talking with self, means self-talk. Now, what you think is directly connected to how you feel. So whether you feel angry, happy, fearful, sometimes, shame, guilt, disappointed, all these are feelings, emotions. Many emotions, anything that can be described in single word is called as emotions. So the way you think has a direct impact on the way you feel. And the way you feel has a direct impact on the way you behave. Okay, so behavior is actually the output. It's output, okay? But what goes inside is these things. The behavior is depending upon the emotions, and the emotions are decided by your thought, and your thought is decided by your belief system. So that's how it is. Okay, so the challenging part is to be aware of your belief system, because once you're aware of your belief system, then only you will be in a position to think whether it is correct or it is something that needs to be repaired. Okay, because anything that can be repaired only when you know that that is not right. Okay, and that brings me to that assertive behavior. Okay, now for assertive behavior, so there was a question asked, like, what kind of behavior defines an assertive behavior? And that's called as being assertive. So here are some of the pointers that what means an assertive behavior. Okay, number one is that if we want our behavior to be assertive, first is, can we treat everybody as equal? Can we treat everybody as equal? Okay, the reason why I say is like this, that and why that mistake happens, that sometimes we don't treat people as equal. So when I say that, sometimes our language might be different when I'm speaking to the security guard of our society, and my language can be different when I'm speaking to my dad, or when I'm speaking to my boss in the office, or when I'm speaking to the colleagues, or when I'm speaking to a junior or a fresher in the organization. Okay, now the difference in language or the difference in tone should not be, but if it is contributed to the way you interpret people. Again, remember attitude. I told three things. Attitude is nothing but the way you think about yourself, the way you think about others. Now, the others can be anything, right? A fresher, a sweeper, a security guard, your dad, your colleagues, your boss, it can be anything. So if there is a difference in the tone or a language or whatever it is, that points out that you are interpreting people differently, and that's reflecting in your language. But in assertive behavior, treat people as equal. Why? There is something which I would like to tell you. For example, there is a concept called as human worth. Okay. Whether it is you, me, or some of you might be, a CEO in a department, some of you might be heading the HR, some of you might be a project manager, whatever it is. Okay, maybe some of us might be an HR executive, or at whatever point in life we are. Okay, there's one thing which is common in all of us, and what's that commonality? We are all human beings. The only difference what is between us is probably the difference of experience, the difference of knowledge, the difference in the skills. Some are better at speaking English, some are not better. Somebody is highly educated, somebody is not. Somebody is at a higher position, someone is at a lower position. Okay, so all the differences which are there, they are skill related differences, they are experience related differences. Okay, there is no difference as far as humans are concerned. Okay, so if we try to change our belief system by looking at other people that everybody is as human as I am, that will lead to a behavior that I will start looking at people as equal. And therefore, when I start looking at people as equals, then my language, whether I'm speaking to a security guard of a society, a sweeper that comes to clean my society's area, or I'm speaking to a boss in my office, my tone will be same. Or in the office, if I'm speaking to my boss, if I'm speaking to a fresher, my tone will be same. If I bring that thing in the belief system that all of us are equal as human beings, so our human worth is same, our skill worth are different. Okay, which is reflecting in our positions, our educations, our experience, or whatever it is. So that's very, very important. Okay, all of us are equal as humans, because this will actually lead to that behavior of talking in the same language, that whatever respectful language, whether irrespective of whom I am speaking to. The second one, which is also sometimes responsible for why we might not treat people differently. Okay, the second one is like this. We have an inborn habit. Okay, it just happens. Okay, there's nothing wrong in it, but it just happens. Whenever we look at any new person in front of us, we immediately judge that person. We immediately get into judging. It happens very naturally. But the reason why I'm telling you is that at least going forward, we need to be aware that this has happened. So I need to be careful. Okay. Some gender, age, whatever we have heard about him, we make a judgment. And what happens is, suppose we have to talk to this person and we have that judgment in our mind, that judgment reflects in our language. Quite possible. And therefore, sometimes there are probable mistakes that can happen in the communication. I'd like to point out to one social experiment which was carried out in one of the companies in down south. Okay. The social experiment which was carried out was like this, that you know, there were around 45 to 50 employees who were brought in a bigger conference room, and they were actually given one task. Okay, and this was an experiment carried out. Okay, so nothing wrong about it. The experiment was okay, that they were told that we are going to show you a picture of a young lady, and we are going to give you one blank page. What you need to do is you need to kind of look at that photograph and predict or try to find out what would be the hobby of this girl. Okay, so anybody who is predicting the right hobby will get a prize, something like that. So the experiment screen, and different age groups, different positions in the company, and they all wrote that hobby, and everybody submitted that paper. And once this job was done, then everybody was said that, okay, now what we are going to do is, there's a surprise for you. We are going to find out who has been successful in predicting or finding out the right hobby of this lady. Now, how would you do that? Well, here's the surprise. They opened the door of that conference room, and the lady which was there on the screen, whose photograph was displayed, now this actual lady in person was brought in that room. Okay, and then what that lady, of course everybody was little kind of embarrassed because they thought that they are just randomly showing the photograph of some lady. So when this girl came in the room, she was told that, what, fine, we have done that experiment, because she was already aware of what they are going to do about her photograph. They said that, these are the bunch of papers. People have judged your hobby. We would like to see that, which of this is the right hobby, so that we would reward the person who has judged it correctly. So the bunch of paper was given to her. She looked at it, and then she said that, no, my hobby is not there in that. So, okay, fine. That's again another surprise. Nobody was able to judge her hobby correctly. So they gave her a blank sheet of paper and said that, can you write your hobby on this paper and maybe show it to the class? So she wrote the hobby on the paper and she showed it to the class. So what was written on that paper? Okay, what was written on that paper was her hobby was mountaineering. And what were written on the sheets submitted by the cooking, stitching, photography, traveling, those kind of hobbies. The reason I gave you this example is that, when we judge people, there are highly likely chances that our judgment might be misplaced. Okay, because again, remember attitude, second part, the way you look at others, that decides what and how you would judge. Okay, because as we say, the concept of definition of what is right and what is wrong depends upon who is deciding, who is looking at it. There's no bookish definition of this is right and this is wrong, or this is good or this is bad. So now we are aware, can we try to not judge the people? Okay, or can we try that our judgment does not impact our communication skill or our communication with that particular person? So that should not happen. Okay, the third one is that assertive people are, they, since they treat people as equals, they are, whenever they have to put their opinion, they always put their opinion in a very straightforward way. Now remember, I'm using the word straightforward, not aggressive. Aggressive is wrong. Okay, straightforward means, so aggressive means my opinion is only the right opinion and you all are wrong. Straightforward is, well, this is what I think about this particular topic, but I do respect your opinions on that topic also. That's straightforward. Because many times what happens is people might not, they are not able to put their opinion in a very, as it is fashion, what they really think about. They change based upon what other people are thinking. That way. So so they are straightforward. So the pointers which I gave you about being assertive is, one is like, treating people as equal. Second is not judging. Okay. Third is about putting your opinion in a very straightforward manner. Okay. The fourth one is the mindset. Well, definitely we have heard about what you say. We have heard about, many of us might have heard about the growth mindset and fixed mindset. Frankly speaking, in today's world, we have to be successful. Okay, we cannot afford the kind of changes going on happening in the industry. We cannot afford employees having a fixed mindset. We need employees having a growth mindset. Okay, the question is, how do you differentiate? What are those small pointers to differentiate, like what mindset might be called as a growth mindset and a fixed mindset? Okay, simple things like, sometimes what comes into our mind that, this is just too hard. But instead of that, if I think like, yeah, I think it's taking some time, but it's okay. Or like, um, I will never be that smart. But instead of that, if you think like, let me learn that new thing so that I also become as smart as others. Okay. Or like, what, hey, I give up. But instead of that, let me try something different. Okay. Or, I made a mistake. That's it. Or instead of that, let me learn from this mistake and try a new thing. So this is how we turn towards that growth mindset. Rather than ending, we always keep options open. The changing the grammar, changing the language, what I speak to myself. Okay, the give up or something like that. I remember that there was this one of the in my working life, one of the freshers said that he was of the view that that there's this other person is very good at communication skills. I don't think I will be able to survive in this environment. I'm not good at it. So I don't know whether I'll be promoted at the right time or something like that, etc. So what I told him is that why are you thinking like just because he has a good communication skill and therefore he will take away the cake or something like that. But instead of that, just change the language, that now you have understood that you are lacking communication skills, so you need to work on it. So changing the grammar, changing the way you look at yourself, now that's attitude. Okay, so many a times the issue with most of the employees, even we ourselves, most of the times the root cause of all these issues might lie in the attitude. And where this attitude comes from, as I said, the belief system. So, but if I know that there is something wrong in my attitude, I need to challenge my belief system. I need to challenge that. I mean, the best example is like, what happens, like, if your project deadline is there and project is not completing on time, and especially people who are given critical feedbacks. Okay, many people get disturbed by the feedback. In fact, many people challenge that feedback. They justify that how that was not the case and therefore this was the case, and so on, whatever it is. Okay, most of the people fail that the feedback which is given to them is not on you as a person, but it is on your job, what you are doing. The feedback is about the job, not about the person. Okay, but again, as I said that remember I started the session with saying that there are 3 must which holds us back in life. The second must, others should treat me well. So the critical feedback doesn't go well with that second expectation, that others should treat me well. So so that's another interesting point. So yes, being assertive, there are pointers, but if we need to really get into this behavior, we need to actually understand the triangle of thinking, feeling, and behavior, how they are interconnected with each other. And the root of this is thinking. The root of this is thinking, and the thinking is decided by our belief system. Okay, many of us are unaware that that our behavior, our thought process, etc., is actually run by or basically decided by that belief system. So if there is something irrational, we need to question our own belief system. How now? Okay, now maybe some of you might have that question, that how do I question whether something is a rational thing or something is a helpful belief or something is not helpful? How do we what do you say, classify that? Whenever you are in any challenging situation, okay, I say challenging situation because these kind of things come to work only in challenging situations. Okay, now the challenge can be very small. Okay, it can be small, like probably missing the bus. Two, the challenges can be very big. Like imagine Captain MS Dhoni in the last 10 minutes of a T20. It's a pressure situation, very pressure situation. In fact, if you look at all those who are watching cricket, now we have watched Dhoni in the last 10-15 minutes of a one day or a T20, and now today we are watching Kohli in the last 10 minutes or last 15 minutes of a one day or T20. I'm sure we are noticing the difference in the way Dhoni approaches and Kohli approaches. Okay, and whenever we are talking about, again, there is nothing right or wrong, so we cannot say that this is wrong and this is right. So we have to just understand what we need to pursue. So it is like, let's take a very small challenge. Okay, a challenge like it's a monsoon season right now out there, correct? Now you are going to a function and the function is very nearby, so you need not go by car or a scooter, so you just decided to walk. And since it's a function, you are dressed well. Okay, you have put up a nice dress, a very good shirt, trousers, shoes, polished shoes, and all those things, and then you are walking along the roadside. And halfway in the journey, what happens is you are walking along the footpath, and suddenly there is a big truck which just crosses you. And while it was crossing you, there was a water logging there, and that all muddy water was splashed on your clothes. Simple challenge. It's a challenging situation actually. Now, what we have seen most of the times when this happens, okay, actually when this happens, we have mostly seen people kind of, what we see is, people using all innovative language, abusing or cursing that truck driver or whatever it is. But you have to remember that's the output. But what happened, if you look at this whole scenario in slow motion, why did somebody got angry? That was a behavior, right? Angry person. Okay, but the emotions behind that were anger, frustration, disappointment. Those were the emotions. Okay, and remember I told you triangle: thinking, feeling, behavior. Okay, what people saw on the road about you was behavior, but it was what behind that behavior were your emotions: anger, frustration, disappointment. Now emotions come from your thought process. What were the thoughts coming into your mind? That ये अभी गंदा हो गया, अभी दूसरा ड्रेस पहनना पड़ेगा, अब नया ड्रेस आज के फंक्शन के लिए मैंने लिया था, वो भी गंदा हो गया, मेरे साथ ही ऐसा हो गया क्या? This always happens with me. चलो अब क्या करते हैं? Let me go back, or let me call the friend. I tell him that I will reach late because I'll go home, I'll catch a rickshaw, I'll go home, change the dress, and then I will go it. Let me manage that. Now all these things come into your mind. The question is, out of this, which are those thoughts you focus? There are all kinds of thoughts going to come in your mind, censored, uncensored, everything. Where are you going to focus? If you focus on those thoughts, कि ये ड्राइवर को अक्ल नहीं है क्या, गाड़ी चलाने नहीं आता है क्या, ऐसा क्यों है, मेरे साथ ये ऐसा क्यों होता है, आज तो बस खत्म हो गया, अभी फंक्शन तो चला गया, these are the thoughts. If you focus on this, there is going to be more anger, more frustration, more of every negative thing, and they are not going to lead you anywhere. But if you focus on the thoughts, let me call the friend, let me catch a rickshaw, go to my home, and let me call the friend that I'll just be late by so and so, this is the reason. Or maybe he has extra clothing for my size or something like that, anything. That means if you focus on those thoughts which are helping you to reach your goal, to do the work what you had got out of your house for, anything, any thoughts which are helping you to move forward, if you focus on that, then your work will get done, and that actually will lead to reasonable emotions, and that will lead to a reasonable behavior. Because जो होना था हो गया, कपड़े आपके गंदे हो गए. In your work life, if there is a project which is not happened in time, now that is a reality. If you focus on इसको blame करना, उसको blame करना, ऐसा क्यों हो गया, and all those things, etc., nothing is going to happen about it. Okay, but you will go into more and more tension, depression, and those kind of things. Those things will come in, and that's why we say that that is not right. Then what? Okay, whatever has happened has happened. Now focus on what to do next. And when you focus on that, automatically, your thoughts go into the right direction, which actually help you to at least repair what has happened and move forward. And that is moving from that kind of thoughts to this kind of thoughts is actually moving your belief system, which if you move your belief system, automatically your thoughts will be right, automatically your emotions will be right, automatically your behavior will be right. Okay. And your right behavior actually is nothing but that assertive behavior. Okay. So again, both these things are connected, but to understand the whole connection about the way things go. And yes, definitely, that is the reason why it is also said that that what is right behavior is also related to your EQ part and all kind of thing. And I'm sure everybody knows IQ and EQ part of it. Now there are of course there are different ways which we can talk about how to kind of make our behavior as much right as possible. Okay. Because I think there was one there was one saying that 90% of the things what happen with us are in our control. It's only that 5-10% which is not in our control. Okay, now that's the reality. How now that 5-10% means like natural calamities which are happening right now, flooding or earthquake or these kind of, you can't do anything about it. It's beyond your control. Okay, but that doesn't happen every third day or every month. No. Okay, what happens with you every day, every running day, every morning or every evening, whatever it is, most of the events which happen with us, which forms that 90-95%, they are within our control. So for example, if I leave my house for the office, correct, or let's say you're going to Bangalore, you have a 11 o'clock flight. Okay, you reach 2 hours before dot, you are absolutely have taken care from your side, everything. But at 10:30, if there is an announcement that your flight is delayed by another 2.5 hours, how do you respond to the situation? Now that is again decided by what are your belief systems and therefore your attitude. Okay, you want to go from Pune to Mumbai, and then you went through the Ghat section, and then that it takes around 4 hours, but in the Ghat section suddenly you find yourself in a very, very deadly traffic jam, which is going to take at least 2-3 hours to resolve. What do? Okay, you plan something and basically it's not happening according to the plan. How do you kind of react? In our professional environment, many a times that happens. We plan something, we plan to the best of our knowledge, but sometimes it doesn't happen the way it is. How do you do about it? Are you going into the blame game or those kind of things because of this and finding like who to make a scapegoat? Okay, and frankly speaking, if anybody says that it is because of him, that reflects on that person itself. Just making a scapegoat doesn't help. In fact, it actually shows the incapability of that person to kind of deal with the situation. So what do you do about it? Like we say today, we want employees, making mistakes. We want employees who can have that growth mindset, who can, not only talk about problems, but we talk about, solutions. So we have a picture about what kind of employee we need. We need fast learners. We need people who can fail fast, but again stand up and try to do new things. Agile mindset and all those things, etc. But all this actually points to the behavior and attitude of the person. Of course, the EQ of the person, not forgetting to mention the EQ part. That's important. Because I remember, I think that case study which became, suddenly it came into the news because that case study was put into many of the MBA colleges, not only in India but even in the Western world, about the attack, the terrorist attack which happened on 26/11 on Taj Mahal Hotel. Now that was the case study used to actually talk about the employee loyalty and all those things. But getting deeper into that, so let me in short brief you what was that case study. So the case study was about during that attack, during that 56 hours of carnage or mayhem, what was happening in that hotel. There were around approximately 700 guests and 700 staff. Okay, so 1400 to 1500 people when that attack happened. Okay, and the good part was that during this whole attack which was happening, many people were surprised that none of the employees of Taj Mahal Hotel ran away. Not a single employee ran away. So when I say single employee, that includes right from the doorkeeper to the telephone operators to the, of course, the CEO, who normally stays in the hotel itself. And many HR experts and all those, they were kind of thinking that, what makes employees so loyal that even in the worst of the circumstances where life is at stake, they don't run away, they stick to their job. Okay, so of course people like Ratan Tata and then Ravi Kant, who was the MD of Tata during those years, they were interviewed. So they went into the recruitment process of sorry, they went into the recruitment process of Tata Hotels. So so Tata Hotels normally recruits students from mostly the tier 3-4 cities. Okay, and their recruitment process, their initial list is not the percentage of marks they have scored in their hotel management courses, whatever it is. Okay, their baseline is they ask teachers that we want those students who show a general attitude of respecting the teachers and then also respect their parents and talk good about their parents. Now, when they had put this condition instead of marks, basically they were trying to address the attitude part of it, because of course hotel is a hospitality industry, and here attitude becomes one of the most defining things for an employee, because if marks are less, the person can be taught how to arrange the table, where to put the glasses and the spoons and the dishes and all those things. That can be completely trained, but how do you train that that attitude of serving people, that something which cannot be taught, that person has to be challenged himself to kind of learn. Okay, so that's so that's where it becomes very much right. Much of the times and much of the problems even in organizations we see the I remember there was this book by there was this article by Shiv Khera. It's around now 15 years old story in the Times of India, that people are hired for their technical skills, but they are fired for their behavioral skills. So most of the people who are fired, hardly anybody's problem of firing is because of any technical capability or the knowledge issue. No. If you look at, if somebody had to do this analytics on the number of people who have been fired and the reasons behind it, 90-95% of the reasons would be in the attitude of the person. And that's where it demands, more attention whenever we are dealing with problems of employees or rather anybody that way, at any positions. Okay, whether we decide the culture of organizations, etc. So it the skill part is afterwards. The core part is attitude. The skill part is the second layer, and the knowledge part is the third layer. If you have to give an analogy of a onion, and that's where this whole thing lies. How do we need to correct? Well, the first step of correction for any individual is to be aware of this. Because once you are 15, 17 years older than that age, there is no way a person is going to change because somebody told him that change. Okay, because after that, the person will change only when the person feels that I need to change. So the question is, how do you make that possible? Okay. So having that understanding about, whenever you are in any challenging situation, whenever you see any emotions which are not good emotions, actually, I mean, which are harmful emotions, anger, fear, depression, disappointment, shame, guilt, overconfidence. These are all kind of unhelpful emotions. Now, the moment you get that feeling of these emotions, we need to immediately question, because every emotion has a thought behind it. You cannot have only emotion. So if I ask anybody, be happy, you cannot, nobody can simply be happy. You need to have a happy thought in your mind that leads to happy emotion. Okay, so so catching those emotions, and therefore catching the thoughts behind those emotions and questioning those thoughts, are they helping me to grow or they are helping me to pull back? And therefore what I need to correct. It's a long process. It doesn't, even if somebody decides to change, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 2-3 months. No. But a consistent practice will lead to that change. Okay. But yeah, overall, when I look back, the challenge is to be even aware of these kind of things. And that's where the first step lies. Awareness is the first change. Okay. So if I have to kind of if you have to kind of sum up these things, what I would say is like this. Just remember the first part, which I said, 3 expectations which we have put from ourselves. Okay. I must do well, others must treat me well, and life should be generally easy, which is not the case. So problems will be there. That's fine. The second one is the triangle, thinking, feeling, behavior. So when I'm behaving, what are the emotions behind it? And therefore, what are my thoughts behind it? And where are those coming from? Which are coming from my belief system. Are they helping me? If they are not, I better question my own thoughts. Because once you do this, automatically you start getting yourself into assertive mode. And then the other things like, treating people as equals. We are all equals. As human beings, we are all equals. There's absolutely no difference between me, you, and probably the janitor who is cleaning bathrooms. We are all humans. That belief helps us to bring that change in the way we see people and therefore attitude. And work on my communications. Let's, how do I look at the whole world? How do I look at people? So so I hope you have kind of got the gist of what I wanted to say. So being assertive is nothing but it's a kind of personality where we treat people as equal, number one, where we don't get into judgment, number two, third is where we where we get upset, recognizing we are upset, what we always give importance to the thoughts which lead us to solution and not away from it, because the more you go away from it, then that stress and all those things, stress, tension, depression, anger, frustration वगैरह, वो सब आ जाता है उसके साथ, that way. And our language to ourselves, मेरे साथ ये ऐसा होता है, सब खत्म हो गया. No, that's all irrational things. And we need to observe this in our own behavior. Whenever we are in meetings, whenever we talk to people, we have seen languages, because see, whenever we feel somebody is wrong, there's no textbook ki jisko maine khol ke bataya, look, your definition is wrong. No, it is in your perspective it is wrong. Okay, it's not that it is wrong universally. No, it's in your perspective it is like that. तुम्हारी भाषा में what are the words which are coming? मैं तो प्रोजेक्ट कभी भी, मेरा प्रोजेक्ट कभी भी फेल ही नहीं हो सकता. Now this language is an extreme language. Why I say extreme languages like this? Because if someday your project doesn't get completed in time, since your expectation from yourself is so high that it can never happen, the emotions, if it happens, also are extreme emotions on the wrong side. Okay, so extreme thoughts, extreme emotions, and therefore extreme behavior. And once you show any kind of behavior, it impacts your character. That's what some of you actually said that in the beginning. Your character is actually a combination of whatever things we have discussed today. So yeah, I think it's around 8:06 p.m. The reason I kept it this much because I think this was the brief, because we could have gone into detail, but in the respect of the time, I also would like to take questions, and that's the reason I thought that let me give around 15-20 minutes for the questions, if anybody has that way. So with that, I would like to kind of hope that this whatever we have been speaking for the last 50-60 minutes, I hope they are of use, and that has given inputs to different people to different extent, and I hope it has all added to each of our what do you say knowledge arena. With that, I just would like to open to questions. It's just like Prashant sir, it is okay if I just say, is that like, is there, I'm there on LinkedIn, you can connect, and we can have those connections, and then like we
Yes,
keep
no.
on we keep on talking, because I'll just kind of put my what you say I'll kind of just put my profile link on the chat box, so that those who feel welcome, more the connections, more the discussions, more the knowledge share, and more the use for both you and me. It's an advantage to all of us and to the community in general. Okay, so and of course I would love to have your feedbacks. Definitely you will be giving it to Prashant sir and Jyotsna, whatever it is. It's always invited, because these are the topics where people have very different opinions, and as I said, we respect those opinions, and any debate or discussion on that leads to a much better perspective of things. So thank you, and let's have some questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, sometimes what happens is the first question is always a difficult question.
Yeah, I will start. This is Rajendran. We do come across people with a negative attitude. Anything and everything, people take it personally, or people feel it negative, or people feel it competitive, inferior or something. How do we make sure that these employees or these people are understanding that they have a negative attitude? Whatever the efforts we make, they still feel that they're having a very positive attitude, and it is very difficult to make sure that these people are making sure that they are understanding their attitude is a challenge.
Okay. So thanks, Rajendra, for that question. It's a very, very common question, and thanks for asking, first of all. What happens, I have seen in organization, and something which we tried also in one of my previous organization, we tried to make that cultural shift. Okay. Now, number one is like this, that, especially performance review, giving feedback is always a tough time in any organizations, because those leads to many different opinions, many different frustrations, overall change in the environment of that organization, that 1 month when all that performance review is being given. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, something that needs to be quite well before that is that, how do we treat feedbacks? Both are important. Giving a feedback, in fact, is much more important. And of course, receiving a feedback is also important. So sometimes what happens is people are not given this perspective. Employees itself are not given those perspectives. So let me give you an example. If I'm giving a feedback to an employee, I need to be very, very sure that, whatever I'm speaking, I am not using any language to him as a person. I'm using a language which is pointing everything, whatever mistakes he has done about his work. Okay. Now that's one point. Second point is like this, that many managers I have seen, they enter that feedback room without any preparations. So if I am supposed to give an employee a feedback, and especially the critical feedback, that why he has been rated as average or satisfied, or not a performer, I need to have the data about what are the things he did, maybe for all those projects where he was not performed, or some mistakes which you have done, those kind of things, because data has to be there. So normally, like, giving feedback is like when you go to a doctor will first do your whole medical checkup, right? And after that, he will call you for some discussions, and his every point, whatever he speaks, is the foundation of that is in that report, correct? None of the point, doctor will never say ki kya kar rahe
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Sorry.
Shankarji. My problem is, I'm a person is very good in meeting the KRA's a goal, whatever the KRA set, this guy is able to achieve it.
Right.
Now, but
Okay.
the attitude is, he will always compare, sir, you have not given me is okay, but you have given to X person. Why is that? In what way he is superior than me? Boss, you have met all your results. You have got a good rating. Be happy. No, sir. But why did you give it to him? That's a big question mark. That's a kind of an attitude. That's
No.
the attitude which I'm talking.
So on the other side, what the question is like this. I think what we used to tell employees, that whenever, if let's say you have got rating as 4 and somebody has got as rating as 5, the question is that what will make you to go from 4 to 5? Okay, I think probably this question what this employee has asked is more in a definitely in a negative fashion, that why he got 5 and why I got 4, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now the question is like this, that sometimes there has to be definitely a reason why somebody, so when answering this question, what would make him 5? Answering those points would be a more right answer.
No,
Okay.
in fact, my issue is he has also got 5, but he is comparing why he also got 5. He is much lower than me.
Exactly.
He should
Okay.
have been rated 3. That is my problem.
Got it. Yes. So yeah, definitely some things have to be very strict. So let me tell you one of the, some of the points is like this, that sometimes we made it very we made it very sensitive to employees that your performance ratings are your private property and should not be discussed in public. Anything found out would be kind of taken very seriously. Number one, which kind of at least lessens these kind of cases. That way. That's first point. Second point is like this. You know what? Uh, Sometimes the person also needs to be kind of shown the result of his behavior. Okay,
Yeah.
made aware of that. Not that we are going to take action, but made aware. Because sometimes what happens is, as we say, success goes into the head, and the person does not know what that he or she is even talking about. Okay, so sensitizations, as I said, in many companies we train people on communication and this and that and all those things. Hardly I have seen, training which kind of focuses on the attitude, the way we think, the way we carry us in a professional environment and all those things, etc. In the career growth plan, when we say that today you are a tech lead, but let's say 10 years or 7 years down the line, you're going to become, let's say, a director or a assistant director. But in this path, what are those competencies? Okay, what are those competencies, especially the behavioral competencies, like teamwork and collaboration, or financial acumen. Now, so making people aware of this also helps them to lead a change in the behavior of employees, because many a times people behave based on what the position they are in and not what they aspire to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Correct. So sometimes making aware of that differences also makes a change in that way. Like for example, if this person, making him aware of that, do you know the way you are looking at other people talks a lot about you. So tomorrow, if you become a manager and you are at a higher position, is this the way you are going to look at others? And if that person is smart enough, he should get the signal, right?
Correct.
That's way. I mean, some of those things. Yeah. Hope I have answered some of those questions.
Yes. Thank you so much. You brought up some ideas to deal such issues.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So there are some questions which came on the chat box. Like Santosh Shinde has asked, if an employee is given a critical feedback, how should he improve upon of time if time is short? Santosh, can you elaborate this?
Yeah, actually my question is, sometimes generally we see that critical feedback, maybe during a performance, critical feedback is given to a person.
Right.
Sometimes it happens that immediately that person goes into a frustration mode and starts thinking like, oh, this is the end. Now I don't think I would be able to,
Yes. I will not be able to improve or kuch nahi hoga.
Secondly, that he is always carrying that fear that any point of time, he might be hired, fired, or something.
Correct.
Person should, to improvise on whatever the critical feedback is given to him.
Okay.
That is
yeah. So Santosh, actually the answer to this lies actually in 2 or 3 things. Number one, you said that the person is always in the fear. Now that actually points to that organizational culture that has been the environment that has been created. Okay. Now that's a total separate thing, because if in an organization a culture is created that the person can be hired or fired any time, and people see that, any employee is going to exaggerate any failure that happens with him or her. That's going to happen. It's going to lead to many different situations, which probably what you have spoken is one of the factors. Now that answer lies into what kind of culture we want in an organization. Okay, because yes, definitely we want people who are not only good but who are capable. Okay, the second part is the feedback. If the feedback is given to an employee, of course it is also the responsibility of the organization to give a time. Now that time can be set, but a reasonable time to show an improvement, because we have to be fair. Okay, now the third thing is the critical feedback. So let me give you an example. If I am given a feedback, feedback should have following points: what the person has done wrong, what is the impact of that on the organization or on the team? And third, therefore, what is expected from you? Are you getting this? ये तीनों चीज चाहिए तुम्हारे सेंटेंस में. अगर इसमें से एक भी चीज गायब रहती है ना, then your feedback is not feedback. It's not a complete feedback. It's a half-baked feedback, right? It's like आते जाते रास्ते में कोई मिला एम्प्लॉय और उसको मैंने बोला अरे वास वेल डन एंड देन आई वॉक अवे. अभी किस बात का वेल डन? व्हाट डिड आई डू? I need to know that, right?
Yes.
So when we are speaking, see, communication is very important. और feedback में तो it becomes ultimately important. क्या गलत किया है? It has to be a data. No comments on the person. No comments on the person. You know, it is that way. कि क्या है, कभी तुझे improve होना है क्या? हाँ, गलती पे गलती किए जा रहा है वगैरह वगैरह. You know, these kind of talks which happen, they are not supposed to happen. And that is the reason we need, especially managers, you have to prepare. Feedback is a very important activity. Going unprepared might lead into some unwanted consequences. जो होता है, many places that has happened. You need to be, if I have to go into feedback, I should have complete data about that person who I'm going to talking to if I'm his manager. So क्या होता है पता है कि हाँ, this is another important mistake, a very common mistake. Since the feedback or the performance review happen once a year, how many times a manager has talked even with that? See, his performance has not gone down suddenly, right? It's the performance over the year. So maybe at least if I am a manager, at least monthly once I should have a chat with that person. If he is going wrong somewhere, it is my duty to bring to his notice and allow him to correct because there is a time. But पूरा साल कुछ बात नहीं किया और लास्ट में परफॉर्मेंस रिव्यू के समय बता दिया that you are not performing well and all those things. I think that's a mistake of the manager also. Manager needs to be questioned. That's not the right supervisory skills, I would say. And all mistakes if you have done, it should be noted somewhere. You have to speak with data. Because only with data, people will never oppose because the data is there. But without data, agar मैं कुछ भी बोलूं, then it becomes a personal opinion. And you are giving feedback. You are not there to give your opinion. So these, see, some of these has to be very dealt with very strictly. I mean, very seriously, sir.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but my second point was that now person about whom the feedback is given, what should be his line of action basically?
If I'm the receiver, remember I am being given feedback not about me as a person, it is about my work. Okay, this is what the receiver mindset should be. Feedback is about मेरे काम के ऊपर feedback है, not me as a person. Correct? And if I'm improving, if I'm working on my feedback, I should also get a feeling that that my managers are there to support me. So if a feedback is given, if an employee is allowed to improve, the organization's job is also to give that environment so that the employee can improve. उसके बाद भी नहीं होता है तो then of course there is the whatever is the regular firing process and all those things. That's fine. But that is where and that's where we say that a recruitment process should be very strong. Like his technical capabilities should be checked, and of course that most of the time those are checked. Okay, most of the time the mistakes happen in like behavioral aspects or attitude or the background of the person. So how a person will react in a particular situation. So normally the interview questions, recruitment, when how do you check the behavior to the best? Of course we cannot check everything in 1 hour, accepted that, but how do we maximum use it to get the most out of that? That okay, fine, this is the situation, so what would you do? Or is there any situation which happened with you and what you react and how did you reacted, whatever it is, or how did you responded? So those kind of things talk a lot about that person's attitude, and that should be checked.
Sir, we are running short of time. I will just take a last question. It has been asked by Mr. Kulkarni in the chat box that whether we can teach assertiveness in the classroom. So this will be the last question we are taking on today's session. Can you please share some views on it?
Sure. Now the question is, can we teach assertiveness in a classroom? Now, classroom is a medium to have discussions, to give information, to make people aware. Okay. Normally, what happens is many companies also assume training is a solution for many things. You know, the job of a training, and especially for behavior. In behavior, what happens is you create that awareness. That how will you make that person to change? Why should that person change? You know, that way. Now, hand holding in terms of they say that anything that is measured, people do that. Okay. Are you also focusing on the behavioral competencies of people? Behavioral competencies. You know, if collaboration is a competency, it is an expected behavior because your work is like that. Then let that competency be a part of your performance review. Okay. So, you know, so what happens if you have a case where the person has done excellent business results, but has shown very rough behavior and all those things, you know, he has brushed a wrong way with many people. How would you rate him? Now that's a challenge. But the way you rate him will also decide what importance you give in that organization and what kind of culture you are building in your organization. And that is why I said, you know, there is nothing wrong or right. There is only you take an action and there is a consequence. But you need to understand your consequence is coming from what action. Okay, so yeah, there should be you know, awareness के लिए classroom चाहिए. Yeah, I mean, see, training is also an important part. Yes, of course it is an important part, you know, but it's a it's an important chain in a frame, in a framework. Okay, where through training you bring about that right change. Then you coach also. You know, if there are few important people, they need to be coached, especially your star talent in the organization. They need to be coached. So indirectly, you give all the support for that employee to grow because you have seen that potential, that you know, high potential people in your organization. So you need to give all that and send them to training. See, because the trainings, reading books, attending seminars, all these kind of things are like a part of his, you know, overall awareness. Okay, giving him those opportunities, and then he is ready for that next position, whatever you have decided for that person. But yes, it's like, you know, it's like, don't look at training in a wrong way that, you know what, yeah, communication skills खराब है, training करा दो और उसका communication skill 3 दिन में अच्छा हो जाएगा. No, it's not like that. Presentation skills, etc. You know, it's and that is why I say all behavioral sessions, we focus more on why a person should change the behavior. First of all, what is the change? So what is the change is probably a small part, but the bigger part is why should he change, or why should he or she change, that way.
Got it, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. On behalf of OHR, this is Advocate Shailendra Deshpande, and I am having a privilege to share the vote of thanks on today's session. We're really thankful to Sunil Shinde, sir. I'm just going to share a few of the takeaways of the sessions. We behave on what we see. We react based on our expectation of results, which you have already shared on 3 must. I must do well, others should treat me well, and life in general way should be easy. And the last thing is a belief system is going to give us our behavior, which is the output. So really wonderful session, sir, because HR people are already having one principle, that right person at the right job. But now this is a time to decide what is the rightness. It is apart from the education, qualification, and experience. So thank you very much, Shinde sir, for giving us a wonderful insight, informative session. And on behalf of OHR, I'm really thankful to you. I'm thankful to all the audiences for being participations by sharing your participation in today's sessions.
Yeah.
We are coming up on 92nd sessions very soon. We expect all of you to join there. Thank you. Thank you.
And
all.
yeah, and please, please connect. I normally, wherever I meet people, I like to connect them on LinkedIn, because that's the network that I have. And more the discussion. You might have some great knowledge, and it's by exchange we each one of us grow. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Shinde sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks all.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, OHR team. Thank you.
Thank you.